Hi, and welcome to Mojave 4 Presents Plug-in Plot Holes. We'll be plugging plot holes that we found on the internet. Although, so far, our record has been... we identify these not so much as plot holes.
I guess if this was like soccer, this would be the ties. We're no wins, no losses, and
Right.
2 ties.
We're just kind of adrift in what I would say are keen observations of stories that are told in movies. It is a visual medium, so when things are visually incongruent, that can seem like a plot hole, and sometimes it's easy to quickly come up with a complaint about a given movie. So here we are. We have 1 through 12. 1 through 12. We have 1 through 12 on the wheel of plot holes, and we have replaced Armageddon and The Maze Runner with Terminator and Gremlins. So, we've got the wheel. We're going to give it a good spin.
Number 12.
Number 12, Signs.
Oh, Signs. I love Signs.
There we go.
I'll say out of the gate, I am a big fan of that film. I'm fairly certain of the plot hole you're going to mention here. But overall, I really enjoyed it. It reminded me of a Hitchcockian thriller.
This is intriguing to me.
Yes.
Because I've heard a lot of clamoring about a certain plot hole, which is if they're allergic to water, why would they come to a planet that is,
essentially all water?
Essentially all water.
Yeah.
What could possibly do that? And the argument is we explore the bottom of the ocean all the time, and when it comes down to it, that will kill us.
Yeah.
Being out in that environment would kill us. We go out in space all the time. Being out in that environment will kill us. The fact that a terrain would kill us is hardly a reason why we stop doing it. So why would we stop the alien? But this one,
I think more along those lines, though, is it wasn't like they had come out and were wearing some sort of suit to protect them from.
And I think that this is the interesting thing, is because this is, in the end, it is revealed that the aliens are supposedly afraid or damaged by water.
Right.
Right. Yet, in the beginning of the movie, they are running through a dew-covered Pennsylvania cornfield at night. I had not thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
That of course, dew and condensation are everywhere,
Yes.
and you can't just run through tall cornfield without brushing against water-laden leaves.
Yes.
So that's solid. That is solid. I mean, it brings us to an interesting thing, which is, what is it about water that is so dangerous to these creatures, these aliens? Because maybe they can withstand a small amount. Maybe it's a volume of water that really does the damage. Although it's very likely too that in the early stages of an invasion, they're learning.
Yeah.
It's possible they get back to the ship and they're like, ow, 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 ow.
Yeah.
And they're pulling out the Bactine and spraying each other down.
Going, we may have made a
what,
mistake
is this planet
here.
covered in water? It's like, yeah, well, we knew that coming in, but...
Right? I their most success that they will have are maybe in the desert regions of this planet.
And maybe that would have been the ultimate lesson for them, was that they belong in the desert. Which is vastly interesting, because this is a planet where water comes from the sky, just comes melting down.
Like, they got lucky there wasn't a storm in Pennsylvania that day.
But I
feel like here in the southeast we'd be all right. The humidity in our air alone would probably dissolve their lungs. The amount of water that they would breathe in,
and that's another interesting conversation piece, because it's like, why weren't they in some kind of protective suit?
Correct.
Why weren't they in spacesuits?
Right.
They were on an alien planet. One of the highly enjoyable parts of Mars Attacks was the fact that they were wearing these crazy spacesuits.
Yes.
And it's like, well, of course they were, because it's not like Earth is going to be particularly habitable for them. And so here you have the perfect example is, yes, that is an intriguing plot point.
Yeah.
Is The aliens coming to the planet is hard, but you can't explain it away because I think even the idea of exploratory for resources kind of thing makes sense. They'll come, they'll drill, they'll leave. Why they're not wearing protective gear, I don't know.
Right. Well, they still didn't take the initiative to protect themselves just in case. First of all, you just look at the damn planet. And there's an awful lot of blue. Now, maybe water is different from where they're from. Maybe water has a different color or whatnot. And maybe perhaps they have no water. They don't know that they have an allergy.
That's a good point too.
Is that to water.
And we talk about like the fact that they're interstellar space travel. However, something to keep in mind, especially when telling stories that are science fiction elements, is that we forget that the wide range, because we're like, well, they obviously are scientifically advanced. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe. What if they're not traveling by means of science? What if they're using something that we don't understand? What if they have something that is faith-based, that flies the ship? What if they are, they never had to learn science because their specific abilities, natural and innately, allow them to do things like travel through space, but it's not by means of discovery and scientific process, it's by means of something else. Their propulsion is, psychic, or we don't have that, and that gives us elements to science fiction that we commonly overlook, because then technically it's not science fiction. You're now delving into fantasy, but it does give us this idea that we have a comprehension of science based upon our ability to observe and our ability to function. Right. But that does not mean that on the other side of the universe, there aren't, planets that have a different system of understanding the universe.
Right. Have an entirely different science altogether.
And it does not include certain things like scanning or, syncing ahead or anything. They might be just insects. Well, that's a good one. Starship Troopers.
Yes.
I thought Starship Troopers was fascinating because in Starship Troopers, they basically vomited, or projectile pooped the aliens into space. They did not travel via ship. They traveled through some organic method of interstellar space travel. And I think that is something that was like, oh, interesting, because they also weren't organized in the way we think of organization. They weren't technologically advanced. They were basically insects that could populate other planets.
I mean, you don't, if I remember correctly, it's been a very long time since I've watched this film, but you don't see the means in which they transport.
I don't think so. In fact,
they are already, I believe the ones that are down here are scouts, because they're the ones that are putting the crop circles out. They're the ones that are trying to give the coordinates and communicate.
And even the crop circles, once you start dealing with crop circles, you're dealing with what's happening there?
Right.
What is the purpose of the crop circle? How is that being, and how are they doing it?
Right.
On top of everything else, are they writing?
Yeah.
Is it some kind of thing? Are they down on the ground pushing it down with sticks like it had been proven you could do?
Like, just need a board and some
wire.
A board and some rope, and there you go.
I will say that this is a plot hole, in the sense of we should have known at that moment that water was damaging them just by observation, I guess.
Right.
But again, we didn't see them. They very well could have been damaged.
You only see the leg of one of them.
Right.
And you don't even know that you see it when you see it until it moves.
It's possible that they were receiving damage, but because dew is so small, it could have just been irritation.
Right. I mean, when they have the big climactic battle and the glass of water spills onto the shoulder of the alien and it starts to burn it and whatnot, you realize at that point, and as you said, it could be a cumulative effect. It may take a
The
vast
volume
amount,
of water,
yeah,
right.
to actually take them out.
Or to affect them at all.
Maybe not so much affect them, but the severity.
Right.
The severity of it.
Right.
It might be as much.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. The question being, when they were running through the cornfields,
Right.
were they sustaining damage? Were they having issues? And since we weren't following them, since we didn't even see them really
Right.
until later. That great, amazing scene of the party where the alien
Walks across
the frame. That was like our first look at it.
Right.
So, I think this is a solid musing point.
Yeah.
Is were they getting damage, and if they were they reporting back damage, and if they were, was the damage worth it?
Right.
Were they coming for something that they were willing to risk the damage?
What were the resources they would be?
Because we never saw any type of technology on them.
No.
We never saw
The only thing they had was an ability to spray some sort of gas or spore or something out from their wrist when at the very end, when the big climactic point, he's holding Mel Gibson's son hostage, essentially. And he's got him like this.
Right.
And he ends up spraying him, but the boy doesn't get the thing because of his asthma. His lungs were closed up. So,
which is also another interesting thing, because it's possible that they don't have blood; they have gas inside of them, or they have dry dust spores inside of them.
yeah.
So
I mean, it's with these movies. This movie's not set out to be really like Independence Day, where in Independence Day you did get a little bit of physiology of the creatures that they were dealing with. They were able to do
in
that.
spacesuits.
And they were. They absolutely were.
They
were in
spacesuits.
suits.
So
But in this one, it really was drop you being the viewer, into the middle of this happening.
and it was a thriller.
Yeah.
It was far more of a thriller than it was like an invasion or
Right.
straight up horror movie. Really,
Right.
it was more, and it was M. Night Shyamalan in a heyday. In a time when we were looking to him for that kind of twist.
A twist of some sort. And really would have been just fine with the twist of his dead wife being clairvoyant in her dying moments. And even their daughter having that kind of thing, because
That connection,
the first
that connective
lines out of her mouth are, "There's a monster in my closet, can I have a glass of water?" And I remember for the longest time, as we all did, we take that as just like a normal kid, waking you up for a glass of water in the middle of the night. But the nonchalantness of, "There's a monster in my closet, can I have a glass of water?" is her asking for a glass of water for protection.
Well, and the fact that she was leaving them all over the place.
Yes.
And it seems like a perfectly normal childhood, thing. Just
Quirk
one of those
of a
quirky
kid, yeah.
things that the kid leaves water everywhere.
Right.
I leave water everywhere.
Yeah.
My house is covered in glasses of water. So it didn't seem out of place until at the end you're like, oh wow,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Which of course those were the signs.
Right.
Not
Not the crop circles.
not the crop circles.
Yes.
So I think that that is worthy of the discussion.
Yeah.
And in plugging it, it's really just an examination of what we don't know. Affording certain things to what we don't know. We don't know if they took damage they may have. We don't know what they were after, really. It was all supposition. They were
Yes.
just scary entities.
Right.
And thereby, we don't know if they're... Because we always assume that it's technologically advanced.
Right.
It's like, but if they're not using technology, or they didn't learn to do things mechanically, but they did it somehow organically, maybe they don't understand a lot of things, and maybe they're new to this idea of water. That it's possible that we're not dealing with advanced technology as much as we are dealing with advanced beings.
Right.
So yeah, that's worth a talk, and I accept that as a plot hole.
Yeah.
In the sense that the aliens should have known.
Right.
But the question then becomes, what were they after that was worth the risk?
Right. I mean,
Because they may not have had a choice.
God help them if they came to Pennsylvania in the winter
The
time.
winter. Yeah, had they landed in winter, they'd all just melt.
They would all have just been gone.
Big piles of goo. And that's another thing is they may not have chosen the Earth. They might have.
It
Just
could have
on
been a crash site.
course.
Yeah.
They could have just like been shooting out in all directions, and they just landed here, and then they were like looking for their
Trying to figure out where you're
how
at.
to colonize and how to exist.
Yeah.
So yeah, it raises good questions, but that is almost sequel worthy. Mm-hmm. An examination of these beings, of these creatures, because if you wanted to really mess with our brains, make them demons.
Yeah.
Tell us they're from hell. They're escaping from hell,
And
that's why water really harms them.
And why the only water we see harm them is the water inside a priest's house.
What?
That's how you plug a plot hole.
That is how you plug a plot hole, friends.
That's how you plug a plot hole.
Thank you for joining us, and we will be giving you more content like this. We're going to be doing plugging plot holes. We'll be slapping pitches. We will be making short films in a week
With randomized
bits of elements.
Yeah.
And we're always thinking of new things to do. We have podcast ideas. We have movie review ideas. And so as we move forward, what we're hoping that 2023 will be a year of content creation and content distribution.
Absolutely. So thank you guys. We'll see y'all next week.